Path to Freedom, a Buddhist dialogue in the modern context.
A very good evening to you and welcome to our Poet Day program, Path to Freedom. Today as well, we've got with us Venerable Galkande Dhammananda Thera, Head of the Department of History and Faculty of Social Sciences, University of Canada. A very good evening to you and we're honored to have you with us this evening. And Venerable Thera, today's topic would be of utmost importance to everyone who's tuning in. And all throughout the year, we will be talking on this line of what exactly is early Buddhism and cultural Buddhism. So it's important for us to understand the ground so that we understand the whole thing overall and about what we should do in terms of being someone pure. So today our topic would be a space to make ground for understanding Buddhism. So we will talk about what exactly is cultural Buddhism. First and foremost, let's explain this in a layman's point of view.
Well, yeah. What we see today all over this country and maybe in Myanmar, Thailand and Tibet and everywhere, what you see as religion, you will see what is something is the physical constructions, right? And then various ways of offering things and so many rituals. All these are, I can name as cultural and in a way popular Buddhism. And cultural, I name them cultural because these are not universal. And when you see in Myanmar, the way they practice or the way the Buddhists connect with their religion is different from the other countries. And it will be different from Tibetan Buddhism, the way Tibetan people connect with the religion and the Buddhists in Sri Lanka. So all these cultural things and the way people connect with religion to find solutions to their day-to-day things, I can name them as cultural. I name them as cultural because they are not universal. They are not the, something that universal to all Buddhists or universal whether someone is Buddhist or not, but still you can see, this is something very good teaching, that will be different from this cultural Buddhism.
And Venerable Thera, you mentioned that in different countries, Buddhism looks different and practiced differently. So what about in Sri Lanka? What do we practice?
Well, Buddhism that we practice here, we name is Theravada Buddhism, and that is historical development. And if I am to explain the process, after the first council mean once the Buddha was passed away, there was a kind of doubt whether without the master how we can continue the message, so that all the leading monks, 500 leading monks come together and collected the teaching of the Buddha, and then they composed the sutras, the teachings, and then divided among themselves to keep it orally, to the next generations. And gradually different views emerged after second council, that is about 100 years after the Buddha. And then the older form of Buddhism, they named themselves as Theravada. And after third council, about 300 years after the Buddha, after the third council, this message was spread, and a group of monks came to Sri Lanka and introduced Buddhism to Sri Lanka. That is about 3rd century BC. And this Buddhism is named, that is why Sri Lankan Buddhism we name Theravada Buddhism. And in Sri Lanka, in Myanmar, in Thailand, these are the major countries that follow Theravada Buddhism. But by saying that, I am not suggesting the Thai, as I mentioned earlier, the Buddhism that is practiced in popular level Thailand and Myanmar and Sri Lanka are the same. No, there are differences. And basically Sri Lanka is Theravada Buddhist country, and the cultural Buddhism that we practice here, it is kind of historical evolution, development within this country. There are sharing from Thailand and Myanmar, but still what we have here is kind of our own way of development. That is, what you see today is that.
Yeah. Venerable Thera, you mentioned about cultural Buddhism practiced in different countries. How did this emerge? Is it related to the way people in other countries behave, and is it just connected to all their traditions? How did this emerge?
There are two ways as I see. One is the different countries, they have their own beliefs and practices, the way of thinking. And once the religious message is introduced to that country, they, in a way, no religion can change the whole society, right? Replace the society with new. What happen is kind of sharing, kind of amalgamation, assimilation, right? Assimilation. And that is one part, that our own cultural things and what comes from the outside. And then historically what people face, 2000 years is not something very, it is very long period of time, and during that time so many catastrophes and wars and epidemics, and people face all these things and they come through all these, and then what happened, they try to find solutions, healing from the religion, and gradually it can change from one point to total different level. It is not in one generation something it change, but it take place for several generations time. What is lacking is the mindfulness. If we are mindful, then we know what is happening, and then we can connect with the original teaching. But if the society is not mindful about what is happening, after a few centuries you will see something totally different religious practices.
Venerable Thera, I'm a little curious on this topic, because you did mention about cultural Buddhism and the way it changes with 2000 years. It's a whole long period, and we understand that people have faced many situations in the world. So what's the difference you see in cultural Buddhism with the real form of Buddhism?
That's very good. That I really like to emphasize this whenever I get a chance, because if we are not mindful and if we are not aware that we have shifted from earlier original message to something very different thing, then we will believe what we practice is Buddhism, and what we practice is what Buddha shared. The enlightenment is what? It is chanting Pirit, or offering flowers to the Buddha, or having various pujas, and then I think it is, I find it is very unjust to the Buddha, and he spend his time not to teach how to do pujas and rituals, but to help people to heal themselves. So that is why I always like to go back what the Buddha taught, what was his message. So his basic message was nothing to do with outside, and not to change outside something, but to change myself, oneself. And there are three major teachings, that is the physical conduct, sila, to manage, to handle the way we, our actions, physical actions, and then mental health and mental, how to manage, how to maintain mental situation, and then wisdom. These are the three areas Buddha talk about. And To go for that, Buddha explained the way we see the world and how we understand the whole world. There, one basic and fundamental teaching of the Buddha, that the conditional genesis theory, that there is nothing, you can find something starting point, there is nothing as such, and everything is interconnected and everything is interdependent. When you say everything is interconnected and everything is interdependent, we see that we are not supreme, that we are part of, we are sharing things, and my happiness rely on your happiness, and I cannot think of a kind of happiness while you are not happy. So that is, with the understanding of this interconnectedness, and then we can think of the happiness of whole, right? Well-being of whole. And then if everything is interconnected and everything is interdependent and everything is changing, that is nothing is permanent. That also is part of this teaching. Then this is the way we look at the world, the way we look at myself. Then what I can do if everything is changing? The Buddha suggests you can intervene. That is where you can handle yourself, your physical conduct, and then whatever you do with loving kindness, and refrain doing anything with anger or hatred. Why we have to refrain from anger and hatred? Once we intervene with anger and hatred, that will be a starting point of a circle. Okay, so when we intervene with love and care and loving kindness, that will be a healthy way of, healthy circle. That once we start with intervene with love and kindness, that will help you, that will heal the others. And once we intervene with love and care, the other person will not continue anger and hatred, right? So the basic teaching of the Buddha, the way we look at ourselves, the way we heal ourselves, the way we heal the whole community, the way we heal the environment. So in that teaching, whatever when you take the teaching, you will not see doing something outside rituals and not expecting something from somewhere. It is not there in Buddhism, but you can change. You can change by changing the way you see the world, by changing the way you connect with the world. So that is how I see the early Buddhism and this later Buddhism, the difference.
Venerable Thera, you spoke of rituals, and sometimes people do it and then they find solace in doing it. And they always do it with a good intention. So what's your take on this? And sometimes you feel good when you help another person. So maybe it's just that this has become a habit?
Yes, that is, there are cultural ways of healing people, right? And we should not negate those things. Those are historical, and they are traditional, and they are very closer to that, much more than something alien, right? They are own. And there is no wrong, there is no fault of having those things. My point is, if we name them as what the Buddha taught, there is, that is what I try to distinguish.
This is where being mindful comes into play.
That's right, yes.
So let's touch on the evolution of Buddhism over time, Venerable Thera.
Yeah, yes. In the first council, that is after 3 months of passing away of the Buddha, those leading monks faced a big question that Buddha has instructed, you have the right to change minor rules if you think so, if you wish so, you can change. Then the monks started discussing what is minor rules and what are the major, and they couldn't agree, and they, depending on the situation, they took the decision, we should not impose any new rule, and we should not change the rule that is already, introduced. And I think this is first step. Okay, after 3 months of the passing away of the Buddha, I am sure this decision was the best decision they could, agree upon. But this decision goes in a way against the teaching of the Buddha, because if everything is changing and nothing is, permanent, how can you pose, or how can you decide we will not change any rule, we will not introduce new rule, because rules are not divinely created. The rules are created depending on situations. The whole society, way of thinking, the economy, everything is changing, but we take the decision not to change any rule. Okay,
But we go with the time.
yeah, I mean, the decision was taken in the first council after 3 months of the Buddha. What I try to highlight here, the change within 3 months' time, they happen to take a decision not to change any rule. Okay, now with open mind we can look at these things that that would have been the best conclusion they could come to, but we cannot take such decision. We will not introduce new rule, and we are not going to change any rule, because there is no permanent rules that you can impose if everything is changing. Okay, that is one point, and then the evolution. At the second council, there were few new ideas came, and then Theravada monks, they tried to continue the old form of Buddhism, and no change. And third council, after that, during the Emperor Asoka's time, and he in a way supported the spread of Buddhism, and then the Mahinda introduced Buddhism to Sri Lanka. And in India, it is still continued, and new schools came up, and basic concept of Buddhism was developed, certain other Buddhist philosophers, and gradually the Mahayana Buddhism came. And now the Theravada Buddhism came first to Sri Lanka, and it was established here, and after that this Mahayana school Buddhism, they also try to come to the country. Then when you read Mahavansa and Deepavansa, you will see the whole narration in those texts are very protective. Always we have to protect this. Protect from whom? It is not from the Catholic people, it is not from the Islam people, it is not from the Hindu people, but from the Mahayana Buddhist school. The same Buddhism, but different new school. So when you read the historical narrations, you will see this debate and the effort to protect this old form from the new form. And after that, in Sri Lanka, there were two Buddhist schools, Mahavihara. When you go to Anuradhapura, you will see Mahavihara, Abhayagiri and Jetavana, and gradually it became one. And during the Kandyan period, historically the country faced lots of difficulties, and Buddhism affected. And after that, in Kandyan period, the Upasampada, higher ordination, was introduced from Thailand, and then another chapter started from Myanmar, and the Buddhism that we see today is this new, starting. But it is not totally new, but continuation of the same school. So, what I suggest, let's wake up and be aware that the religion that we see today has come through this history and facing lot of changes, difficulties, so that the whole history you will see in this present form of Buddhism, and what I suggest, to be mindful.
Exactly, and we touched on the evolution of Buddhism right now, and we've come towards the latter part of the program. We are left with like 5 more minutes to go. So on Path to Freedom, what we intend to do is make people understand Buddhism better. So we are setting the ground to understand what cultural Buddhism is and what early Buddhism is. So as a final, Venerable Thera, shall we touch on early Buddhism?
Early Buddhism, it suggests the personal development to make someone very loving, a human being that mentally, physically, and the way of speaking, kind of higher human. It is not something divinely, changed person, but a person he himself changed his way of looking at the world, and to see the connection of the other human beings and the other living beings, and the change his whole way of connecting, maybe the way you speak, the way you think, and particularly the mental health. So early Buddhism suggests it proposed the path for such a human being to be such a human being. Yeah.
With that, it's time for us to wind up the program as well, Venerable Thera. It was a pleasure talking to you and very informative indeed. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
With that, we wind up this Poya Day's Path to Freedom program. We featured Venerable Galkande Dhammananda Thera, Head of Department of History, Faculty of Social Sciences, University of Kelaniya. With that, it's time for us to wish you a pleasant night.